Welcome to Ladies Talk Show. This is your host, Leah Richeimer, and I just have to tell you, we are in the middle of a very, very important class called Shalom Bayis when kids are off the derech, OTD. And I apologize, some people call it on their derech, which is better, but yeah. So we're just kind of using, I hope we're not doing anything politically incorrect. I don't like to do those kind of things, but I did want to address this very, very crucial, important topic. I've had a lot of requests for it, and please God, if you haven't already done so, watch last week's class. Like last week's class explained and walked you through and the mistakes people make and what's the important thing to focus on. It explained everything about this so that you're going to understand these questions a lot better. Maybe watch that one first, or maybe get the questions first and then watch that, but don't miss last week's show. If you know anybody, if this is you know anybody, or you can forward this class to somebody who could use the chizuk and the whole point of it was to give a lot of tools, like boom, 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 right? We went over a lot of tools, but also mostly to just ease their heart, to ease their suffering, we're with them, and that we feel their pain, and we honor the fact that they are parenting, probably doing more effort in parenting than every other all the other people combined, whatever. Anyhow, okay, we're starting with questions, and we had a lot of questions come in from the first class that I taught, and from last week also. And we're going to start with there's going to be a Q&A where I'm going to answer and elucidate, hopefully, some of the issues that people are facing. So go ahead, Deb. What do you got for me?
Okay. I'm really struggling to be emotionally available to my husband's needs. I have two struggling children and a number of others who all need me. I feel torn in so many directions, and I'm lacking emotional capacity for it all.
I hear. First of all, you labeled yourself incorrectly. When you label yourself, and I lack emotional capacity to deal with it all. Guess what? You do. And you're like, carrying this huge weight, whatever. Much more powerful way to look at it is, I'm dealing with a lot, and Hashem must have thought I could handle it, or he wouldn't have given it to me. Okay. So it is exactly as it's meant to be. You are greater than you think you are. You are bigger than you think you are. And that should give you a lot of koyach, a lot of power, a lot of strength, a lot of ability. Like, you know what? I got this. I got this. It's very funny because you see a young married and she's having, 3 guests for Shabbos. And I mean this, and I mean that, and you've been making Shabbos for 20 years. And they like, oh, last minute, 5 minutes before candlelighting. Oh, by the way, we're sending over a dozen people to your house. Hope it's okay. Click, and you're like, okay, we'll work it out. A few cans of corn, whatever it is, but you see a person's capacity and a person's ability to deal with things grows and grows and grows, and yours is too. And you shouldn't, don't label yourself that way. So that's the first thing I would start with. But the second thing is that when you are juggling, there's just too much to juggle. There's one answer, and it's always the right answer. Take care of your husband. Now, one could say, what about take care of myself? Okay, I'm going to go do some self-care and I'm going to whatever. Okay, I hear that. I hear that. But if you are focusing on yourself, women, we're just too selfless to everything's flying and the house is flying and this kid needs me and that one's off the derech, and we invited him to Shabbos and they said yes, and now we're trying to plan a menu with all their favorite foods so that they actually will like being there, whatever, and letting them not wear a kippah at the table. I don't know. You know what? Oh, that's above my pay grade. You got to ask for Shayla's about all those things, but and it's not my area of expertise. But the point is that the answer is always take care of your husband first. Just take care of him. Just put him first. Take care of him first. We know that's Shalom Bayis Masorah. And even if it is at the cost of yourself, you're not going to go in the midst of all this drama and trauma and stuff going on. You're not going to go and sit in the spa and get a massage and get your nails done. Yeah, I know that's not going to happen. Taking that, the self-care, a lot of people think of that as self-care. Self-care is also could be, taking someone, there's a little old lady who's very lonely and going and taking her to the park and bringing her home for 45 minutes, a fairly unpainful thing that you do, that can be more self-care. You can hit the pillow after doing something like that, feeling so good about yourself that at 10 getting your nails done doesn't do, So I'm not an expert in self-care, but I do know that doing for others is often mistranslated as doing for others when it's really builds our own self-esteem. So I would tend toward that as a self-care, maybe listening to music or going for a walk or letting yourself take a break. How's that for an idea? I hear all of those things. They're all important. I just want to focus right now on the fact of when everything's flying, take care of your husband. There's two reasons for that. Number one, because you're Nezer Kenegdo, you were born to take care of him. Number two, you're going to feel better about yourself that you aren't raging at everybody or venting to everybody or barking at everybody. You're doing something productive, like making your husband his favorite cookies, whatever, right? So that's the second thing. The third thing is that if you take care of your husband, if you put more energy and more Shalom Bayis vibes and more work and figure out and learn how better to take care of your husband, guess what? He'll take better care of you. And guess what? You need it. You may think you don't need it, but you may get frustrated by him and annoyed with him. But if you were to do, like, let's say, you're very frustrated, which school the kid should go to, this one, you're afraid they'll label him and whatever, you don't want to, all this stuff is going on and all these machinations. And you say, I'm not even thinking about that. Right now, I'm working on this recipe where the brisket, you saute it first, and then you put some wine, and then you put some, parsley and, whatever. I'm just focusing on taking care of my husband the best way I know how in the moment. You'll do that. He'll bite into the brisket and he'll think, I haven't gotten my wife a present in a year. I'm going to get her something. It somehow, when you focus on Shalom Bayis, and we know this is our Masorah from Har Sinai, when you focus, all bracha comes from Shemayim through the husband into the wife. And if the wife is appreciative and thanking and doing and taking care of her husband, more bracha will pour into the home. So rather than me just telling you this and you're saying, that's interesting, well, whatever, try this at home. Try it at home when you're feeling like you don't know what to do and you're feeling overwhelmed, you're feeling emotionally incapable of handling it all. Do something for your husband and see where that leads you. Okay. And we have a guarantee from Hashem that if you take care of your husband, you take care of Shalom Bayis, more bracha will flow into the home. And by bracha, we mean parnasa and refuah and kids off the derech coming home and, the dishwasher working and, like that. And you getting a babysitter on when you really need it. All the bracha that we need in our homes is improved by working on Shalom Bayis. Hatzlacha, Hashem should bench you that you have Hatzlacha in this. Okay, what else you got for me, Deb?
There are so many cracks in our marriage, yet only I realize we're struggling as my husband is so detached. He also views our Off-The-Derech child so negatively. It seems impossible to be together on this journey.
I think in this case, you need to see somebody. I really do. I think you find somebody who's just loving and caring, and even your husband probably, I don't want to go. And if he's detached, you go yourself and have him help you. Have the therapist, a boy, man or woman, whatever you think your husband's going to like better, but have him, help, have that person help figure out how to get your husband to therapy. Also, if you go to therapy and it's helping you and you're dealing with it better, that is also potentially a motivator for your husband to also join you in getting some therapy. But, if barring that, if that's not possible, and there's ways that financially it can work, you can get students, you can get whatever. But if that isn't a direction you can go at the moment, another thing that you can do is learn our Shalom Bayis Masorah like the back of your hand, because there are certain magic things a wife can do to shift everything, giving her husband more respect. And okay, women, I don't want to, he should respect me. I hear, if you want more respect, you respect him more, he'll respect you more. End of story. Is it fair that you have to start? No. Is it annoying? Yes. But does it work? Guaranteed. So, learn more about our Shalom Bayis Masorah and learn more what you can do to to improve your Shalom Bayis. You know, the Ladies Talk Show, we have 380 shows on tour anytime, and at www.ladiestalkshow.com. I have, 21 days to am I pointing it? 21 days to an awesome marriage and marriage secrets. By the way, I'm a full-time volunteer, so all my income goes for Shalom Bayis education. So I don't need your book royalty money. Okay, well, I would like it, but I donate that for education. So just do yourself the favor of learning our Shalom Bayis Masorah so that at least you'll be doing something. There's always something a wife can do, and it's very hard sometimes to figure out what you can do. But for instance, if you slow down interrupting your husband, like let's say he starts talking and then you say, and you finish his sentences all the time, or you interrupt him, tell him what you want to say. Don't do that for a little bit. Try for one time, don't do it. And you'll see your husband has a different stature. His income will increase. His, I'm being a little exaggerated, but it's not, there's emes to what I'm saying. When your husband feels respected, his whole attitude about life shifts. So learning the Masorah is, I think, the number one thing you can do to shift everything. And, if the reason I said therapy is because it's often helpful to have someone to talk to. If you're just reading, what you should do, and then you can't do it, or you're resentful, so you can't get over the hurdle, to, having somebody to work with can really be helpful if it's the right person. But in any case, the main point, the main answer: get yourself educated on the Shalom Bayis Masorah, get yourself supported, get yourself help so that you can bring Shalom Bayis back into your home. That is the best plan for bringing Off-The-Derech Kids home. And this is not, and I said this in the class, this is not to blame kids and say, oh, the reason your kid's off the derech is because of no lack of Shalom Bayis. That is not, I'm not going there. Do not beat yourself up. This is not a school for beating yourself up. This is to strengthen you. So if you are going down that dark tunnel trying to figure out why and what your husband does, and blaming and whatever, all of that stuff we covered in the last class, make sure you're on it. Make sure you're working very hard to move forward and to figure out what you can do and what actions you can take to make things better. Okay, what else, Deb?
My husband follows an old school approach to raising our children. Our struggling daughter's level of modesty annoys him enormously and causes huge friction, specifically around the shabbos table. I feel torn between showing my daughter acceptance so she stays at the table and showing my husband respect. Wouldn't her needs come before my husband's here?
So this necessitates a preemptive conversation with your husband about how you want to handle it. Because first of all, the answer to the question, wouldn't my daughter's needs come before my husband? And the answer is no. They wouldn't. Your husband's needs are your priority, and your daughter's needs, it's nice to fulfill, but your husband's needs come first. And I say that with a caveat, because if you speak with your husband and you talk about what's your life goal, if he says, my goal is to make her frum, and my goal is to, bring our, make our Shabbos table nice without this not-sneeze outfit, whatever, if that's his goal, then that becomes your goal. So, even though I'm saying his needs are first, if that's his need, then now you need to say, what is our best way of doing it? If you push, if our long-term goal is to get her back to Yiddishkeit, having a lot of tension at the Shabbos table doesn't seem like it will work, dear. What do you suggest we do so that we can have a nice Shabbos table that you can live with? Is there a compromise? Can she wear a sweater? Can she, okay, she wears pants, but you don't see them. They're under the table and above from the waist up. She's, I don't know, I'm making stuff up, but I mean, this has to be a preemptive conversation before you're at the table and there's a lot of tension in the home. There needs to be a conversation where you hash out how you're going to handle it. And again, if you do that with, we need to do this and we need to do that and the right way to do this, it's going to go horribly. Okay. But if you say, what do you think, dear? Now I know there are very, very wise people who know exactly what how to deal with Off-The-Derech Kids, and they might have never let them come at they might say always let them come at the Shabbos table no matter how they're dressed, or no, you should stick to your guns. I don't know the answers to those. I'm not an expert on that field, so you can ask questions of people. You can find, I don't know how you find these organizations that are brilliant at this, or people who, there's Rebbeim who that's what they do full time, and you can ask them these specific shilas on how to handle it. But it might be hard to find that person, and you might get the answer and it's the opposite of what your husband thinks, so you might be opening a can of worms. But it's good to at least have some information, maybe. But the bottom line is, you and your husband need to have a conversation before the trauma, before the tension in the Shabbos table, or before you preemptively conversate and say, dear, I don't know what to do. Here's what's happening. You feel this way about it. I feel that way about it. I want to do what you want because I trust you, and I feel like you're so wise and smart, and I'm so happy I married you, and you're my best friend, and I want to follow you to the ends of the earth. But I'm really worried. I know your deep down goal is to bring her back to Yiddishkeit. I'm not sure how to get her there. I'm really not. I have a gut feeling that letting her come to the Shabbos table, not sneas, is the right thing. Can we ask a shaila? Do you think, whatever, I don't want to push her away. You're having a conversation with your husband, with you both on the same team, rather than you feel this way, he feels that way. Arr, right? When a woman mavatters to her husband and she says, we'll do it whatever way you think. If you think we should be harsh at the table, and I will do that. If that's really, really how you feel, all I'm doing is asking you to consider the ramifications, the long-term ramifications of this. Again, if you're coming to this, and in every other aspect of your life, you're not respecting your husband, you're interrupting him, you're not greeting him when he comes in the door, you're not treating him well, you have so much resentment and anger towards him, you have all this stuff and whatever, this conversation ain't going to go well. If you start learning the Shalom Bayis Masorah, and you start treating him with the respect he desperately needs, and he in turn starts just treating you with more respect, which is exactly what will happen if you show him more respect, guaranteed, even though you may not see it, it may take a while, it may take time, it might be hard for you, whatever. But we know that if you respect your husband, he will respect you. That's from Chazal. That's not Leah Richeimer. So if you are able to do all these kind of Masorah things around the thing, getting your needs met, showing appreciation, treating him like a king, all the things that we know, there's 220 sources that I put together. If you are doing all of that, then this conversation will go much better, because he'll want to please you because you're getting his needs met, which is respect and letting him have control, letting him feel powerful in his own home, letting him feel like you're on his team. If you're doing all of that, then this would go much smoother. So work on all of that. But the most important thing is shift your focus from pecking at each other and at the kid, and work on Shalom Bayis. That will improve every area of your life and bring more bracha into your home. Okay, what else you got for us, Deb?
Okay, there might be a little bit of overlap here, but I'm going to read it anyway. Sometimes my kids complain to me about their father because they're angry about how he handles something, or they don't feel emotionally safe with him. I have differing views to my husband, and part of me agrees with them. How can I be loyal to him but support my child?
It's a beautiful question. It's a beautiful question, and it's really case by case. So I'm going to try and answer a general question with a specific, it's really specific to that thing. And I'm not, so I might give a blanket statement that doesn't apply to your particular case, but I think having a general rule of thumb will be helpful in this. And that is that it's far, far, far more important to be loyal to your husband than to be supportive to your kid. I'm going to say that again. It's far more important to be loyal to your husband than it is to be supportive of your kid. And I just want you to know that's for two reasons. One is because your husband needs it desperately. Number two, your neshama is going to be judged on how loyal you were or were not to your husband. And thirdly, if you are putting your kids before your husband, and you are agreeing with him that your husband's bad, you're doing two horrible things. Number one, You are robbing your children of a father, and they will hate you for it. I'm going to say that again. You are robbing them of their father by putting him down and taking away his power. You are robbing them of a father, and they will come to hate you for it. I'm sorry to say that. I'm saying it very harsh because I want you to wake up to this problem. Second thing you're doing by being disloyal to your husband is you are robbing the authority figure that teenagers need so much. So a teenager will say, Daddy talks so harsh about things. I don't feel safe around him. And you know what? God made husbands a little harsher and a little bit, I'll tell the story of a potato. The kid is sitting there and he takes his fork and he stabs the potato in his sister's thing and he starts munching on the potato, right? It's not the best thing to do, but it's not the worst thing to do. And the father says, go to your room without supper. Get out of here. Go out. Get out upstairs. Go, 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 go. Get out. You're not that kind of behavior isn't acceptable, right? Punishment doesn't fit the crime. It's a little bit harsh, a little bit strong, a little bit mean, a little bit kicking the dog, maybe had a bad day at work. Who knows? Now, here's the choice of the wife. The wife can say, no, wait a sec. Don't go. Hold on. Shmuel, the father, Shmuel, that's not, the punishment doesn't fit the crime. He's, he didn't really mean it. He didn't really know that what was a bad thing to do, and making all kinds of excuses. It's okay. You don't have to go. Say you're sorry to your sister. And he turns and says, sorry, sister, whatever, you've completely thrown your husband under the bus. Secondly, you've taken all of the authority that your husband has been trying to, needs or whatever. You've completely taken away his authority. So guess what? When the kids are teenagers, or maybe they already are teenagers, they don't have any father. That you've robbed them of their father. You've taken their father away. You've taken the authority. Hashem didn't make two wimpy sweet. Oh, it's okay, dear. Whatever he made. Usually it's the man who's harsh. Sometimes it's the woman. And the husband's a little softy. It can. Both. We all have masculine and feminine parts to us. But when a woman, right in front of the husband, in front of the kids, she's completely taking his authority away. She's doing herself the biggest damage she can do, because just when she needs him the most, when the kids are teenagers, they're not afraid of him, and she's taken all his power away. So this whole potato thing, the right thing to do is when he sends to the room, zip your lip, put your duct tape on, oh wait, what's this? Zip your lip, and then you later you can say, I think you were a little harsh on him, the potato thing or whatever, and he'll say, nope, I felt strong, and then you'll go, yeah, fine. Or he'll say, oh, really? I'll go talk to him. I'll go play chess with him. That'll, and tell him how much I love him. Good. So the point of this story is I hear that the kids are complaining to you about their father. They really, they might need support. They might need, if there's genuine abuse coming on, you have to use your own judgment. This is why I said I'm answering it kind of generally, but there could be case by case basis where your intervention is necessary. Better if your intervention is privately with your husband and telling him the facts, rather than being in cahoots with the kids and saying, oh, I'm going to tell daddy this and whatever, like that. So it's very important that you show loyalty to your husband. It's a key to closeness in your relationship, and it's kind of like you and your husband against the rest, against everybody else, and that's how it should be. So it's a very, very good question, and err on the side of loyal to your husband, not to your kids. And if they need support, get them the support they need. You can support them without dissing your husband and throwing him under the bus. Really good question. Okay, good. What else you got? Oh, I think we only have time for one last question. Go ahead, Debbie.
Okay. My husband won't spend time to read up and listen to podcasts about raising struggling children. Because of this, I'm constantly explaining what I'm doing and why, often repeating myself, and sometimes I get so angry at him I yell. He also ruins the little bit of headway I'm able to make with the kids. I feel like he doesn't care enough about me or our family to put the effort in to get himself trained. How can I re-establish the shalom in our bias?
So first of all, sorry. I totally hear it. Men and women approach things so differently. Women, you don't get, do you know that I read this a thing. I think it's true and it's whatever, but 90% of books purchased on the planet Earth are from women. Like, I was like, what? What? That couldn't possibly be true. 90%. That's what I heard. Even if it's wrong and it's 80%, it's still crazy. So women learn and process and podcasts and learning and whatever in a whole different way than men do. And the fact that you have to repeat them and it has to come through you, it's frustrating. I totally hear that. And maybe there's, creative ways you can talk to a rebbitzin or a friend. You have to be careful. Maybe somebody from another town or something like that to brainstorm creative ways to get the information into your husband that stick. So, let's say the thing is, I don't know, let's say Rav, you listen to a podcast and it says the most important thing is unconditional love. And the kid comes in and they're dressed horribly. And the husband says, "What are you dressed like that?" Whatever, and you say, "No, unconditional love is so important." So you could say to him, you know, I'm not quite sure what to do. This is again a preemptive conversation before anything has happened. Okay, I'm not sure quite what to do. I learned on a podcast that a kid needs unconditional love, and you're supposed to turn a blind eye from what they're doing. They're trying to get a rise out of you, and if they get a rise, it makes them do it more. Maybe I don't know. I'm making this up because I don't know the dynamics, and I'm not an expert in Off-The-Derech Kids and how to get them back. Whatever. I'm no ways near an expert on it, but I do know that Shalom Bayis is the number one way to give you the best shot. So that don't lose that focus. But so in a preemptive conversation with your husband, you could say, they need unconditional love. I heard that they need unconditional love. What are your thoughts on it? And he goes, yeah, that kind of makes sense. So let me ask you, what should we do next time? Sarah walks in wearing not sneeze clothes. Should we say something? Should we not say something? What's our plan going to be? And put the whole problem in his lap and see what he says and see, whatever. You explain the things to him. Again, you don't want to have him have, a rule for everything, because one rule and another rule, every time something changes, you're like dancing as fast as you can. Whereas if you have some underlying concepts that both of you agree on, unconditional love. I'm making that one up. I think that's probably true, but I don't know. But let's say that you both agree that unconditional love. So how does that play out? Now that you have the sort of goal, the deep goal that you have that you agree on, then maybe you're having those deep conversations with your husbands about that will help guide and steer day-to-day actions. Now, there is a difference for women. A woman can hear a concept and then put it into action, and a man sometimes has a harder time doing that. It's like, or a person, even a woman can have a hard time. A man can, different people have different ability to learn something and make it part of them and take their actions different. And so he might have a harder time doing that, and he might need to be repeated 400 times, like that kid who the Rebbe had to repeat it 400 times. And then the person interrupted in the middle. And he said, the whole time I thought you were going to be walking out the door. So he had to repeat it another 400 times. You know the story. So the point is that, that could be your lot in life, is to repeat it 400 times. And if you take that on with, okay, Hashem, this isn't the path I would have chosen, but you chose it for me. You know better. You're smarter. You're wiser. Whatever. This is what I need to do. I will go through the trouble of explaining to my husband 400 times without getting angry. That's my avoda. That's my commitment this year for Rosh Hashanah, whatever. That's my commitment this year. I'm going to try and do it with love in my heart and be understanding. Or think of creative solutions. I'm going to write it down on a piece of paper for him. I'm going to have index cards, and when something happens, I'm going to show him secretly, whatever it is, coming up with creative ideas, but taking it upon yourself that rather than wishing it wasn't the way it is, accept the way Hashem has given it to you, and then play the cards as best you can, the cards that Hashem has given you. Because not just your husband your husband designed your husband with that deficiency to bring out the best in you. Okay, so I know this is very heady what I'm saying, and again, I'm giving generalization when it's a specific issue, but the whole focus that you need to keep in your heart, in your head, is that if you focus on Shalom Bayis and you focus on keeping your husband happy and taking care of his needs and learning our Shalom Bayis Masorah so you know how to best take care of him, your kids will do better and better and better in Meretz Hashem, and you will do better and better and better. Okay, we've got to go. This is Leah Richeimer. Thank you. This is the most important topic. You can see my limitations in my expertise in this, but at least I want to shed some light onto the Shalom Bayis aspect of it so that you realize if you start focusing your energy on Shalom Bayis rather than pecking at the kid, pecking at each other, but focus on Shalom Bayis, everything in your home will go more beautifully. Okay, it's Leah Richeimer. Thanks for being with me. We'll see you next time.